Good afternoon. Welcome you all once again to Webic Care 2020. Today we are having a discussion on acute respiratory distress syndrome, the most important topic for all intensivists, especially nowadays in COVID pandemic. This is the most important topic I feel. Dr. Jeevan is here. Dr. Jeevan, MD, FNB, an intensivist at present Institute of Nephrology. He may join a bigger institute in the next few days. Dr. Jeevan will going to highlight on the clinical review. It will be a very broad topic actually for to understand the non-ventilatory management as well as ventilatory management, and to discuss a lot on the evidences behind this acute respiratory distress syndrome. If there is if it is difficult to cover in one session, we'll try to do in another session with same topic, ARDS. I request Dr. Jeevan to proceed.
Okay.
Jeevan, please.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk on this topic, ISCCM Mysore. So I'll be starting with the ARDS. So the ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome, is characterized by hypoxemia and bilateral lung infiltrate. It was first described by Ashbach et al. In 1967. It is not a disease entity but a syndrome because it involves multiple organs because of the release of inflammatory mediates into the systemic circulations. It is a multi-organ involvement, and also there is involvement of right side of the heart because of the PEEP and involvement of the lung. So there is a significant reduction in the amount of normally aerated lung tissue. So the most of the lung tissue will be flooded with the inflammatory liquid, so that majority of the tissue will be not involving in the ventilation and oxygenation. So only a part of lung will be there for normal ventilation, that is called as baby lung concept. The preserved lung with the normal compliance, that is baby lung, will be markedly over distended by normal or even with a low tidal volume. So we have to be very careful, because whatever the normal tidal volume we are giving, it may over distend the available alveolar units. So we should be very careful while ventilating with the ARDS patients. Even if we reduce the tidal volume to 6 ml per kg body weight, there is something called as tidal hyperinflation. Tidal hyperinflation means even if you ventilate for 6 ml tidal volume, the amount of aerated lung in the ARDS lung will be hyperinflated, like around 30 to 40% of the lung will be hyperinflated even with the tidal volume of 6 ml per kg body weight. So we need to customize the PEEP and tidal volume according to the compliance of the lung. So every individual is different. There is no standard one rule for everyone or one number for everyone. We need to customize the PEEP and tidal volume depending upon the compliance of the lung. So that is the bottom line of this slide. Okay. Next, the mortality in ARDS is not due to hypoxemia, though it is a type 1 respiratory failure. Mortality in ARDS is mainly due to ventilator associated lung injury, because we are ventilating the patient with higher tidal volume for a lower uh, lung mass, that is the baby lung. So because of this pressure of mechanical ventilation, the fibrous structure of the lung parenchyma will be under pressure, that will release the inflammatory cytokines into the systemic circulation, and also it will damage the whatever the residual lung tissue which is available for ventilation and oxygenation. So the primary mode of ventilation in ARDS patient is to avoid ventilator associated lung injury. As much as possible, better not to ventilate the patient, mechanically ventilate the patient with intubation. Better to go for non-invasive techniques, But if it is prolonging more than a day or two and patient is still remaining hypoxic in spite of non-invasive ventilatory supports like NIV or high flow nasal oxygen, then it is better to intubate within 48 hours, because intubation within 48 hours after initiation of high flow has a significant mortality benefit. So we need to take a dynamic call after initiation of the high flow nasal oxygen. So next thing is this, everyone will be knowing this slide. So it's a New Berlin definition of ARDS. So there are four aspects in this. One is timing, oxygenation, origin of edema, and chest X-ray. Timing is less than 7 days of respiratory symptoms. Chest X-ray, there is a classical bilateral inhomogeneous fluffy infiltrates in the bilateral lung. So the four aspects to be considered. One is timing and oxygenation, chest X-ray, and origin of edema. So here the timing is within 1 week of clinical insults or respiratory symptoms or worsening respiratory symptoms within 1 week. Chest X-ray, as I told, it will be bilateral fluffy infiltrates in the both lung. It's a classical of viral pneumonia. So origin of edema, there should not be any fluid overload status or renal failure, which is contributing for the pulmonary edema. So oxygenation, here they have taken PF ratio of less than 300 and less than 200 and less than 100 with the CPAP of 5 centimeter of water. This is mandatory. If it is less than 300, it is mild, moderate is less than 200, and severe is less than 100. This classification is very important because many of the trials for proning and any interventions in ARDS, this classification is taken for the baseline matching. Like in proning, they have taken patients with PF ratio of less than 150. So this classification everyone should be knowing. So coming into the pathophysiology of ARDS, so there is a injured alveoli, bronchial epithelium, type 1 pneumatocytes will be apoptotic, and there will be inactivation of surfactant. Surfactant is required for the opening up of the alveoli. If there is inactivation of surfactant, there is all tendency to the alveoli to remain closed. Okay, there is also a activation of pulmonary alveolar macrophages, which will stimulate the release of cytokines like interleukin 1, 6, 8, and tissue necrosis factors into the systemic circulation. This is the one possible reason for involvement of other organs than lung in the ARDS patient. Okay, there is also a widening of edematous interstitium. Because of this, there is a problem in the oxygenation and ventilation, and also endothelial damage is also there. This is overall pathophysiology of the physiology of ARDS lung. So because of accumulation of interstitial fluid in the lung, it will tend to settle down in the bottom of the lung, so that the most of the lung in the lower region will be alveoli will be closed, and they are not involved in the ventilation and oxygenation. So it's the same thing I have continued. There will be release of inflammatory cytokines into the circulation, and involvement of multi-organ dysfunction will be there. That leads to death. And there is, because of widening interstitium, there is also problem with oxygenation and ventilation. So lung injury in ARDS is, there is this is the B part is called as baby lung. Only this part of the lung is available for ventilation in this ARDS lung. So the C part is partially aerated, and A is non-aerated. This is supine sagittal view of the supine X-ray CT scan. So the entire lung injury in the ARDS is not uniform. So the pleural pressure and the transpulmonary pressure is grossly erratic in the ARDS lung. That's why even the ventilation is also very much affected. So the role of NIV in ARDS. Previously, there was concept called as one minute. So the role of NIV in acute lung injury and ARDS, there is a significant failure rates with NIV. It is like 50 to 80%. Independent risk factors for NIV failure are severe hypoxemia, metabolic acidosis, and shock. So routinely, NIV is not at all recommended for type 1 respiratory failure as in case of ARDS. So this is not at all a choice. The first best choice will be high flow nasal oxygen. The possible reason for the failure of NIV might be the same amount of pressure will be delivered to the different alveoli, which has a different pressure level depending upon the area of the alveoli. Like dependent alveoli has high pressure, and apical alveoli has low pressure. So the same amount of pressure will be delivered to the all the alveoli with the different plateau pressures. So it might not benefit in the. This could be the possible reason. So they have done a trial on this. I'll be coming further in the further slides. So it has to be cautiously tried in highly selected patients. If the patient do have COPD with ARDS, or if there is no availability of high flow nasal oxygen, in those cases, and if he is not fit for mechanical ventilation, in those cases we can still try NIV, but there is a significant failure rate, and also the mortality is also high. So this is a trial called as a Florale trial. There they have used NIV, high flow nasal oxygen, and standard oxygen therapy. They have compared all three. So in this, there is no difference in the need for intubation in all three sets of patient. But in particularly on one subset of patient where the PF ratio, PaO2 and FiO2 ratio less than 200, they had a significant benefit with high flow nasal oxygen. In that patient, in that group of patient where the PF ratio is less than 200 and they have started high flow nasal oxygen, then the need for intubation has come down. So this is the benefit. So if the patient is PF ratio is less than 200 and he is not fit for intubation, in those particular cases we can try high flow nasal oxygen. Okay. So the primary outcome in this study was 90-day survival benefits. There was statistically significant survival benefit with high flow nasal oxygen compared to standard oxygen and NIV. So the first choice would be high flow nasal oxygen in patient who doesn't require intubation and the PF ratio is less than 200. Conclusion: in patient with non-hypercapnic acute hypoxic respiratory failure, treatment with high flow standard oxygen NIV did not result in any significant difference in the intubation rates, but there was a significant difference in 90-day mortality, which will favor the use of high flow nasal oxygen. Okay, the rationale behind the benefits of early intubation in ARDS. If you intubate the patient early, like within 48 hours after initiation of non-invasive therapy, there will be some benefit. I'll show you that later. So this possible benefit might be due to the changes in transpulmonary pressure. Transpulmonary pressure is a true distending pressure of the alveoli. This is the one which is going to decide the barotrauma and subsequent ventilator associated lung injury in ventilated patient, and also it is also equally important in spontaneously breathing patient because it has the same effect in both in spontaneously and ventilating patient and ventilator driven tidal volume, because transpulmonary pressure is a pressure plateau pressure minus pleural pressure. So if the respiratory drive is very high for a spontaneously breathing patient, the pleural pressure will become more negative and the transpulmonary pressure will be more than 25, which is a which will cause barotrauma and lung injury. So changes in the transpulmonary pressure is same with spontaneously generated and ventilator driven tidal volume. Okay, so the changes in the pleural pressure during respiration are non-uniformly transmitted in ARDS lung. The transpulmonary pressure being a distending pressure in the alveoli, is more during spontaneously breathing patient with increased respiratory drive that I already mentioned, which will increase the barotrauma and further worsening of the lung condition by the release of inflammatory cytokines, because we already have a limited lung for oxygenation and ventilation. If we allow the patient for spontaneous breathing with non-invasive oxygen support for a long time, there is something called as patient inflicted or self-inflicted lung injury. This is called as SILI. Okay, because this is because of high respiratory drive, highly negative pleural pressure, and highly positive transpulmonary pressure, which is the true distending pressure of the alveoli, which will cause the release of inflammatory cytokines. This is what we are supposed to avoid in the ventilation of the ARDS. So don't delay the patient by putting high flow nasal oxygen for prolonged period. Keep assessing the patient. If the patient there is no significant improvement in the oxygenation, PF ratio, respiratory distress, better to go for early intubation in such patients. So because early intubation has mortality benefits. What is stress, strain, and ventilator induced lung injury? You might be knowing there is something called as trauma, barotrauma, atelectode trauma, and biotrauma, and something else called as ergotrauma that I'll discuss in the future slides. uh, Strain is due to over distension of the complement. There are some compliant alveoli will be there of the baby lung. If you give normal tidal volume, that will over distend and causes valve trauma. Lung strain is the ratio of tidal volume divided by functional residual capacity. The functional residual capacity here is drastically reduced, so the strain component of the lung will drastically increase even if you come down with the tidal volume. The stress is the plateau pressure. Stress is defined as a transpulmonary pressure at the end of inspiration. If the transpulmonary pressure is very high, that also depends upon the pleural pressure. If the transpulmonary pressure is more than 25, the chances of barotrauma is very high. The atelector trauma is cyclical opening and closing of the alveoli, that the shear stress will cause the release of inflammatory cytokines. So we are supposed to ventilate the patient with a PEEP just about the lower inflection point, so that the chances of cyclical opening and closing will be less. That I'll discuss later. Shear forces can reach up to more than 140 centimeters of water, even when the airway pressure are less than 30. You see the plateau pressure after inspiration. You keep a hold for 5 seconds, then the whatever the air in the lung will be distributed among the compliant alveoli, and it will show some pressure that is called as plateau pressure. If that plateau pressure is less than 30 centimeter of water, the actual shearing force what the alveoli is going through might be more than 140 centimeters because of atelector trauma. So this will can cause worsening of the lung condition. So above all mechanisms like trauma, barotrauma, and atelector trauma, this can lead to release of inflammatory cytokines. This is called as biotrauma. Okay. See, there in the ARDS lung, there is a over distension of one alveoli and the collapse of the other alveoli. Normal, all the alveoli will be distending at the same size. The repeated recruitment and derecruitment, cyclical opening and closing of the alveoli. This will also cause atelector trauma, as I already told you. This is the basal lung and partially aerated lung and fully aerated lung. All three alveoli they have shown. So what happens if you give pressure PEEP in these patients? There will be reduction in the atelector trauma and also biotrauma. So stress risers. Total lung capacity cannot be reached even with the tidal volume of 12 ml per kg body weight. However, in inhomogeneous lung like ARDS lung, the multiplication factor for pressure at the interface of completely collapsed and completely distended pulmonary units would be 4. Means, as I already told you, global transpulmonary pressure might be 30 centimeter of water, but it actual pressure is 120 because the multiplication factor per pressure is 4 in a inhomogeneous lung like ARDS lung. So I have shown the same thing. Inhomogeneous system, there is over-distension of one alveoli, and the pressure is significantly higher, and the other alveoli is completely collapsed. So this is a new concept. It is ergotrauma. It's the power of mechanical in a mechanically ventilated ARDS patient. There are multiple components which will cause a trauma to the lung, that is called as ergotrauma. There is a complex equation for the mechanical power actually acting on the lung. So I have simplified it for you, like power is directly proportional to respiratory rate, tidal volume, peak pressure, and plateau pressure. When you double the tidal volume or the driving pressure, there is a fourfold increasing in the mechanical power. Similarly, doubling the respiratory rate will lead to increasing the mechanical power by 2.5 times. 2 times of mechanical power will be increased if the PP is doubled. Why I am stressing so much on this is, yeah, every component of mechanical pressure, mechanical ventilation has its own impact on the injured lung. Even that can cause ventilator associated lung injury. It is not only the tidal volume or the respiratory rate. The peak pressures, plateau pressures, everything has a role to play in the ventilator associated lung injury. The idea of ventilation in the ARDS patient is to ventilate the injured lung with as minimum as respiratory rate, tidal volume, and peak pressure, so that so as to maintain the oxygenation and PaO2, but not to injure the other part of the lung and other part of the body. It will minimize the biotrauma as well by reducing the release of inflammatory cytokines, thereby protecting the multi-organ dysfunction. So minimize the power to minimize the ventilator associated lung injury. So if you compensate the tidal volume with increasing the respiratory rate to maintain the minute ventilation, even that will also have an impact on ventilation with the ARDS patient. So we need to be keep everything low and also maintain oxygenation and minute ventilation. So what should be the ventilatory strategies in ARDS? Adequate ventilation without causing valvular trauma. That's why the small tidal volume, 4 to 6 ml. A high respiratory rate, it should be less than 35. If you go more than that, as I told you already, the power of mechanical ventilation will increase and also causes a willy. Allows some amount of permissive hypercapnia, because excessive increasing the carbon dioxide can cause pulmonary vasoconstriction and also affect the already affected right side of the heart. So avoid barotrauma, use appropriate PEEP. How to use appropriate PEEP, I'll discuss in the further slides. Limit the plateau pressure of less than 30 centimeter of water, and we usually use a dual mode of ventilation. The pressure control ventilation has some theoretical benefits that I will discuss. And driving pressure of less than 40. They have pooled n number of patients and matched the driving pressure in each patient. Those patients with the driving pressure of less than 14 has a significant reduction in the mortality. That's why they are given this magic number of 14 to avoid injury to the lung with the increased driving pressure. Ventilatory strategies continued. Recruitment is application of airway pressure to increase the transpulmonary pressure to open up the closed non-compliant alveoli and make them participate in the gas exchange. This is called as functional recruitment. Means you are applying some amount of pressure in the airway by giving PEEP or airway pressure, so that the transpulmonary pressure will increase and it will open up the non-compliant alveoli, so that this non-compliant alveoli also takes participation in gas exchange. This is called as functional recruitment. Opened alveoli may lead to vascular compromise, and also there might be some amount of over distension. They might not participate in the gas exchange, and the gas exchange improvement in the gaseous level, like PaO2 improvement, might not be as expected with the recruitment maneuver. So this is called as anatomical recruitment. So I forgot to mention there are two types, subtypes of IRDS, subphenotypes of IRDS. One is hypoinflammatory, and other one is hyperinflammatory. The recruitment maneuver and higher level of PEEP will be beneficial only in the hyperinflammatory type of ARDS. Okay, how to diagnose the hyperinflammatory type is very difficult, because we need to do the markers of inflammations like interleukin 6 levels, tissue necrosis factor levels has to be seen. That is a difficult thing, but the recruitment and high PEEP will be beneficial only in the early phase and extrapulmonary ARDS, and also subtype 2 hyperinflammatory ARDS type. So post recruitment PEEP titration is very critical. Whenever you decide to use any recruitment maneuver to open up the collapsed airway, after that there should be a significant titration of the PEEP, so as to avoid the de-recruitment of already recruited alveoli. So it is mandatory to titrate the PEEP. Otherwise, if you don't titrate the PEEP, after the recruitment, the alveoli tends to close down. So this is a landmark trial, ARMA trial. They have compared 12 ml per kg body weight, predicted body weight, and 6 ml per kg of predicted body weight as a tidal volume. They have compared both. The results were the intervention group has a mortality of 31%. Means there is a statistically significant mortality benefit with lower tidal volume compared to tidal volume of 12 ml per kg body weight. Other benefits being lower duration of ventilation and lower incidence of non-lung organ failure days. Okay, the same ArchNet protocol we are still using. There is a complete discussion in the further slides. We'll go through it. Yeah, ArchNet protocol, 5 basic component. What they have used is volume control ventilation, tidal volume of 6 ml per kg body weight, plateau pressure less than 30, as I already told you. Simultaneous escalation of PEEP and FiO2 to prevent hypoxemia. Avoidance of hypercarbia and acidosis. Increase the respiratory rate. If we are, in spite of increasing the respiratory rate, if the pH is significantly low, you can even add soda bicarb. Goals of therapy is to maintain the PaO2 of 55 to 80. Here also they have not given a target of SaO2 of 99 or PaO2 of 100. They have just maintained the oxygenation in order to oxygenate the end organ with sufficient oxygenation. So here they have excluded pregnancy and intracranial hypertension and stroke, where the oxygenation goal is more than 94%. So as I already told you, patient with ARDS doesn't die of hypoxemia. It is only because of ventilator-associated lung injury and also multi-organ dysfunction. So you don't have to keep this saturation targets of 99 or PaO2 target of more than 80. How to calculate what is the initial modes of ventilation, how to titrate tidal volume and plateau pressures, that I'll go through in details. This is ideal body weight has to be calculated like 50 plus 2.3 into height in inches minus 60. This formula we are supposed to use for calculating the ideal body weight, and tidal volume is measured according to the ideal body weight. Initially, we are supposed to keep 8 ml of tidal volume per kg body weight of tidal volume. Every 2 hours, you can come down up to 6. Plateau pressure goals will be usually less than 30. If the pressure goals is more than 30 and the tidal volume is 6 ml per kg body weight, you can further come down with the tidal volume to up to 4 ml per kg body weight. And if plateau pressure is less than 25 and tidal volume is less than 6 ml, you can go up to 6 ml. So ideally, the bottom line is plateau pressure should be less than 30, and tidal volume can go as low as 4 ml and as high as 6 ml per kg body weight. So coming into the mode of mechanical ventilation, this is a trial, prospective randomized trial comparing pressure control and volume control ventilation. What they have, this was conducted by Esteban et al. What they have found is uh, the main finding in the study was that in patient with ARDS who request mechanical ventilation, the way in which mechanical ventilation is provided to deliberately reduce the inspiratory plateau pressure by decreasing the tidal volume in volume control ventilation or inspiratory pressure and pressure control ventilation does not independently influence the mortality. We have also found this trial also found the mortality in ARDS is due to other organ involvement and especially the kidney failure rather than to do with the mode of mechanical ventilation. But in further slides I'll discuss the advantage of pressure control ventilation in ARDS. So, but in even in this, they have found pressure control ventilation was associated with improved oxygenation, better synchrony, less organ failure, but definitely no mortality benefits. So, I am just going through the slide which will compare the volume control ventilation and pressure control ventilation in ARDS. In pressure control ventilation, the set pressure is reached early in the phase of inspiration and it is maintained throughout the inspiration. So the mean airway pressure is kept open. That's why the alveolar recruitment will be better with the pressure control ventilation. And also the flow in pressure control ventilation is decelerating flow. This will also increases the VQ matching. But in volume control ventilation, the pressure is raised only at the end of inspiration, and it will be high for only few seconds. So there is a theoretical advantage of pressure control ventilation over volume control ventilation. Eh, so the area under the curve is more compared to volume control ventilation. So higher MAP helps in better recruitment and oxygenation. And also the in pressure control ventilation, as the flow is not limited, the flow is limited in volume control ventilation, but here it is not limited. So if the drive is high, patient can take more flow. So the synchrony with ventilation is better with pressure control ventilation. Oh, the disadvantage is, even if the pressure is on control ventilation, if the patient has huge drive, as the flow is also not limited, transpulmonary pressure will be very high because of more negative pulmonary pressure, and flow is also not limited. So it might the lung might take more tidal volume, which might cause barotrauma. So this is the possible disadvantage. So if the patient is on pressure control ventilation and he has a large respiratory drive, better to paralyze the patient in order to abolish the ventilatory drive. So if you paralyze this kind of patients, it will limit the pressure and there won't be any injury related to increasing the transpulmonary pressure. Transpulmonary pressure per se doesn't increase. Uh, P plateau might be limited in pressure control ventilation, but transpulmonary pressure acting at the alveolar level is very much high. Plateau pressure is limited, but transpulmonary pressure depends upon the pleural pressure as well. If the pleural pressure becomes more negative, then the transpulmonary pressure, which is a true distending pressure, will be higher at the alveolar level. You might limit the plateau pressure to less than 30, but transpulmonary pressure being very high, it will injure the lung. This I am stressing too many times because it's an important concept to be known. Even if you limit the plateau pressure, if the pleural pressure is more negative, it can injure the lung. So this was I was speaking about this tidal hyperinflation. the tidal volume and plateau pressure limitation decreases mortality in ARDS. Computer tomography demonstrated a small, normally aerated compartment on the top of poorly aerated and non-aerated compartment that may be hyperinflated by tidal inflation. This is what they wanted to prove in this study. They have done the multiple patients they have taken, and they have limited the tidal volume and also plateau pressure to less than 30, and they have done serial CT scans and which shown. See, there is a significant one third of the lung in the ARDS lung, even with the tidal means tidal volume of 6 ml per kg body weight, one third of the baby lung is hyperinflated even in this. So, what to conclude is ARDS net protocol limiting the tidal volume and plateau pressure to less than 30 may not be sufficient to minimize the ventilator associated lung injury in patients with ARDS, whose disease process is characterized by distribution of small non-dependent normally aerated compartment and large dependent non-aerated compartment. So if you follow the ARTSNet protocol and you'll tell my patient we have limited the plateau pressure of less than 30, and we have given only less than 6 ml of tidal volume, but still patient has chances of developing willy, because we need to customize the tidal volume depending upon the compliance of the lung, not with the ideal body weight or a random number. So the results here is the protected group means they have categorized two sets of people here which were included in the study. One is less than 30 of P plateau and one is less than 28 centimeters of water. So they have found means bronchoalveolar lavage, interleukin 6, 1, 8 and TNF alpha level were very low in patient whom we have restricted the plateau pressure to less than 28. So ventilator free days were more with this group of patient. Mortality rate was significant, statistically significant, like 30% in the protected group, where we have limited the plateau pressures to less than 28, and it was 40% in patients with plateau pressure of 30. So tidal hyperinflation was the only independent predictor of rise cytokines and ventilator free days. So even so, the what was the inference with this study was it is not only the 6 ml or 30 less than 30%, 30 centimeter of P plateau, even less than that is required. Like even lower tidal volumes may be needed in some patient depending upon the compliance, and even less than 28 centimeter of plateau pressure is safer goal to avoid tidal hyperinflation. So you need to customize every patient depending upon their compliance. So I'll be discussing about the titration of PEEP in further slides, how to titrate the PEEP and tidal volume depending upon the compliance of the lung. See, this is one more thing. Here also they have restricted tidal volume. Here restricted to P plateau of less than 30, but the tidal volume they have given 6 ml and 12 ml. So tidal volume, the P plateau they have restricted less than 30, but here also they have found people who are given 12 ml of tidal volume has significantly higher mortality rate, even if their plateau pressure is restricted to less than 30. That is what this slide is giving us the information. Carbon dioxide management. This permissive hypercapnia is contraindicated in pregnancy, raised ACT, and also severe shock. Initially, respiratory rate can be kept between 24 to 30 and adjusted according to the pH. If there is a drop in pH due to respiratory acidosis, you can still go up to 35. So deep sedation is required because the higher respiratory rate, there might be asynchrony and further worsening of the lung condition. So sedation and muscle relaxants are also required initial 1 or 2 days. So if the pH is less than 2.5, you can give IV soda bicarb according to this trial, ARMA trial. Uh, Next, coming into PEEP. So PEEP will definitely promote the alveolar recruitment. PEEP is a positive end expiratory pressure. If the patient is in the lower aspect of the PV loop, then the chances of collapse of the alveoli will be more. If you keep a positive pressure at the end of their expiration, it will promote the alveolar recruitment and prevent the shearing stress and atelectotrauma. There will be redistribution of alveolar edema from the interstitial spaces. By recruiting alveoli and stabilizing the airway, PEEP will affect the regional distribution of tidal volume. It will cause somewhat homogeneous alveolar ventilation. The problem with the ARDS is inhomogeneity. There is erratic hyperventilation, non-ventilation, and partially ventilation. If you keep PEEP, somehow there will be some amount of homogeneity in alveolar ventilation. But the drawback, as you already know, some normally ventilated alveoli will be over distended, and it will increase the physiological dead spaces, which will not contribute for oxygenation. The extra pulmonary side effects being decreased cardiac output, which will cause cardiorenal syndrome, renal dysfunction, raised ICT, decreasing the preload to right side of the heart, and also decreased splanchnic perfusion. So this part, so if you are giving high PEEP to any patient, better to look into the all these parameters. You should keep all these parameters in mind while you giving higher PEEP. It's the same thing I was already told you. S- uh, this is PV loop. Here, this zone is called as derecruitment and atelectasis. If you keep PEEP here, the chances of atelector trauma will be high. So there is something called as lower inflection point. The newer ventilators have the ability to detect the lower inflection point. If you keep 2 to 3 centimeters above the lower reflection point, this is a safe window to keep the PEEP. So if this crosses beyond this level, beyond the safe window level, then there is a possibility of over distension. Both will be harmful. The over distension will cause volutrauma and biotrauma, and this will cause atelectotrauma. Both will going to harm the patient. So the ideal part is this part of the PV loop where we are supposed to keep the PEEP. PEEP will increase the FRC, reduces the shunt and increase the PO2. It will also increase the compliance and reduce the work of breathing. These are the benefits of PEEP we already discussed. So what is open lung strategy? Amato is the one who has done extensive study in ARDS patient. He has also suggested open lung ventilation. The open lung ventilation means use of PEEP to overcome lower inflection point and allowing ventilation at a more favorable part of the PV loop. And use of low tidal volume to prevent over distension. Both we have done here, like using the optimal PEEP optimal PEEP where there is no hemodynamic stability and there is no over distension and there is no collapse of the alveoli. This is called as optimal PEEP. We need to keep an optimal PEEP and use lower tidal volume to prevent over distension. This is called as open lung strategy described by Amato et al. This part is the safe part of PEEP titration. This is called as lower inflection point, and 2 to 3 centimeters above the lower inflection point is the ideal part of PEEP. What is the rationale for open lung ventilation and whatever the Amato has prescribed, suggested is potential benefits of PEEP and open lung ventilation in ARDS maximizes the recruitment of alveoli by preventing derecruitment, minimize the cyclic atelectasis and atelectotrauma, decreases the biotrauma from alveolar collapse. We have discussed. This is the PEEP titration table. This is ARTSNet protocol. How much amount of PEEP has to be kept with FiO2. If FiO2 requirement is 0.5, we need to keep a 10 PEEP, and if FiO2 requirement is 0.7, we might have to increase it to 12 to 14. This is the PEEP table, and this doesn't fit for all. because the compliance is very erratic, and we need to look into the compliance of the individual and lung and then decide the PEEP rather than blindly going for this table. That is what I would like to suggest. High They have compared two things. There are two things here: high PEEP table and low PEEP table. Uh, the high PEEP has improved the oxygenation, increased the ventilator free days, decreased the need for rescue therapy. Whenever we have used the high PEEP table in patients with ARDS, it has improved the oxygenation, increased the ventilator free days, and decreased the need for rescue therapies like recruitment maneuvers. But this can't be used in all patients. PF ratio of less than 200 who are mechanically ventilating with using high PEEP strategy had a lower mortality benefit. A subgroup of patients where the PF ratio is less than 200, as I already told you, high PEEPs only benefits in extrapulmonary ARDS, like ARDS due to pancreatitis, burns. In these kind of patients, higher PEEP will be benefiting. And also I told you the subtype 2 hyperinflammatory ARDS kind of ARDS will benefit with the higher PEEP. So high PEEP versus low PEEP, we are confused which table to use. So in this case of scenario, here to clear your doubts, there is no evidence that high PEEP strategy is beneficial when applied in this has to be stressed, like unselected ARDS patient. There is no evidence of high PEEP strategy is beneficial when applied to unselected ARDS patient. So it has to be highly selected. Those with extrapulmonary ARDS and higher inflammatory secretion collection in the lower part of the lung, those kind of patients will definitely benefit from the higher PEEP. Here the functional recruitment is highly variable with high PEEP. There is no simple method to identify patient likely to benefit from high PEEP, patient at risk of over distension. There is no simple method. If you ventilate with high PEEP, there may be risk of over distension as well. Use recruitment maneuver only in severe hypoxemia after disconnection from the ventilator. If you That is one thing. If you disconnect the ventilator or sudden accidental disconnection, this initial few days of ARDS is very fragile. The alveoli tend to collapse soon after the disconnection because there is sudden loss of airway pressure. So in this case scenario, you can use the recruitment maneuvers to recruit the de-recruited alveoli, and also in early phase of alveoli less than 48 hours. What is the problem with the recruitment maneuver? There is a hemodynamic compromise and RV dysfunction. Is it safe to use high level of PEEP? We have decided to use high level, but we are bothered whether it is stay safe or not. The strain is two things. Dynamic is caused by tidal volume and static is caused by PEEP. The combined effect of tidal volume and PEEP will be there for the strain of the lung. So if you are increasing the tidal PEEP, then you are supposed to come down with the tidal volume. It is safe to use high PEEP, but tidal volume should be adjusted to reduce the total strain on the lung. So this is a meta-analysis. They have taken three studies like alveolar studies, LOWES, and EXPRESS trial. They have found out only moderate to severe ARDS has a survival benefit with high PEEP. And also they have found patient who has been given high PEEP has a less rescue therapies, like rescue therapy and the sudden deoxygenation will be common. So rescue therapy will be like recruitment maneuver. So in those patients whom we had already given high PEEP, they required less number of rescue therapies, and they also had a better survival rate compared to low PEEP in moderate to severe ARDS. Moderate to severe, as already I have mentioned the pathophysiology, there is a inflammatory secretion collected in the interstitium. In moderate to severe, it will also cause hypoxemia, of PF ratio of less than 150 and 100. So in those cases, because of increased inflammatory secretions around the alveoli, if you give extra high PEEP, this will going to clear the inflammatory collection from the interstitium into the systemic circulation and also improve the oxygenation. That's how it will cause survival benefits. So the same thing, the three trials, as I already mentioned, mortality was 32% with higher PEEP and 35% with lower PEEP. With ARDS, in ARDS patients, it is 34% with higher PEEP and 39% in the lower PEEP. Here, they also did the same thing for without ARDS clinical scenario. There, if the patient doesn't have ARDS and you are given high PEEP, then the mortality will significantly increase, like 7% with a higher PEEP and 19% with a lower PEEP. So you are supposed to give high PEEP only in ARDS patient with drop in PF ratio and the signs of inflammatory collection around the alveoli. Pulmonary edema can even be seen by lung ultrasonography. There will be in n number of B lines, congruence of B lines that will also suggest interstitial edema. In this kind of patients, you can give higher PEEP. So how to titrate the PEEP? There are multiple methods to titrate the PEEP. As I already mentioned before, lower inflection point method, incremental method, decremental method, driving pressure to titrate the PEEP, and transpulmonary pressure, ultrasound based, and one thing called as stress index that I'll discuss. Lower inflection point, only this is not as easy as shown in the figure, because only newer generation ventilator has this lower inflection detection of the lower inflection point. They use some technique called as quasi-static technique, and continuous low flow should be used for detection of lower inflection point. Once you detect the lower inflection point, keep 2 to 3 centimeters above the lower inflection point to avoid atelector trauma and biotrauma. So this is the PV loop of the ARDS lung. Goal is to avoid injury zone and operate in the safe window, as I already mentioned. This is the safe window. Here there will be over distension, and here there will be atelectasis and derecruitment of the alveoli, which will trigger the biotrauma. See this how to look for the recruitability. When the lung is low potential for recruitment, this inflation limb will be more or less straight. And lower linear compliance and small degree of hysteresis. This part is called as hysteresis. This hysteresis part will also be very low, and inflation limb is more or less straight. So if the PV loop is like this and it has low potential for recruitability, there is no point in increasing the PEEP. If the PV loop is like this with a larger amount of hysteresis and inflation limb is more curvy, then you can use higher PEEP. Incremental method. Point of best compliance at increasing level of PEEP. Keep increasing the PEEP till the change in the plateau pressure is less than or equal to change in the PEEP. See, to explain this, if you consider patient has only 100 alveoli and 60 alveoli is already collapsed due to ARDS. When you give PEEP, there are extra 20 alveoli will be recruited. So overall 60 alveoli is open for ventilation. So whatever the tidal volume you have given will be distributed in 60 alveoli, and the plateau pressure will come down. That is the basic idea of driving pressure and recruitment maneuvers. So if the lung is compliant and recruitable, there will be opening up of further alveoli, and the tidal volume whatever we have given will be distributed in the newly recruited alveoli, and the plateau pressure is end expiratory pressure will come down, because it will get distributed in newly recruited alveoli, and also overall pressure will come down. So this if this kind of picture is there, then you can keep increasing the alveoli. Once the P if there is increasing P from 14 to 18, and the plateau pressure will also increase with that, then that is the stage we need to stop the increasing PEEP. Because if you increase the PEEP and if there is also increasing the plateau pressure, then there is no recruitment of further alveoli. Whatever the tidal volume you are giving will be distributed in the already opened alveoli and causing the over distension. Over distension will also lead to increasing the plateau pressure. So that should be the ideal method to keep the optimal PEEP. So same thing with the decremental method. Decremental method is keeping higher PEEP and keep reducing the PEEP so that it will operate in same opposite to incremental method. As I already told you, after inspiration, if you keep a inspiratory hold, it will reach a plateau pressure. That is called as plateau pressure, and driving pressure is plateau pressure minus PEEP. If there is a reduction in the plateau pressure due to recruitment of the alveoli, driving pressure will also come down. This is very good article published in 2015 by Amato et al. This has changed the practice in critical care when we manage the ARDS patient. Before we used to titrate the tidal volume upon depending upon the ideal body weight. In this paper, they are shown the influence of tidal ventilation could be measured in better way if the tidal volume is normalized to compliance instead of predicted body weight. Here they have matched the tidal volume depending upon the compliance, not with the predicted body weight, because predicted body weight will give a fixed number of tidal volume. Patient might not be that compliant to accommodate that amount of tidal volume. So if you titrate according to the compliance of the lung, the things are going to better. The ratio of tidal volume and compliance is taken as an index for functional size of the lung. Means if the only 20% of the lung is available for ventilation, then the ratio will also come down. So this ratio is nothing but the driving pressure, and this ratio is taken as the functional size of the lung. The ratio is termed as driving pressure, and it is a better predictor of outcome of ARDS. And even for the titration of the PEEP, driving pressure is better. Multivariate relative risk of death will be higher if the driving pressure is more than 15. You can see in the graph. This part of the graph has a significant higher mortality when the driving pressure is more than 14, and if it is less than 14, the mortality has significantly come down. So among the ventilator variables, driving pressure was the most strongly associated with survival, even in patient receiving protected plateau pressure and tidal volume. See, they are measured like even in a protected ventilation where the settings of tidal volume is less than 6 ml and plateau pressure is less than 30. Even in those, if the driving pressure is more than 14, there is a significant increase in the mortality. That is what I am trying to convey. So the driving pressure was most strongly associated with survival even in patient receiving protected P-plat and tidal volume. So this is a important graph here. The first graph shows increasing the driving pressure and P being kept the same. So if there is a increase in the driving pressure, the mortality has significantly increased. I have mentioned in the previous slide, driving pressure is independently associated with mortality. If there is significant increasing in the mortality, in the driving pressure, the mortality has also increased. But just a minute.
Hello. Any question, please put in the chat box.
Hello.
Yeah, please continue, Jeevan. No problem.
Yeah. Then second slide is they have increased the PEEP, but driving pressure, there was no drop in the driving pressure. It might be a scenario, even if after increasing the PEEP, there won't be any recruitment of the alveoli. That's why the driving pressure has kept the same. In this scenario, there was no increasing the mortality, but it was same. So this also indicates that driving pressure has a significant role in mortality. Here, the driving pressure was kept the same, so the mortality did not increase. This is the final thing where we have increased the PEEP and there will be significant reduction in the driving pressure. In this group of patients, there was significant drop in the mortality rate. So what I'm trying to convey is, if you increase the PEEP, there should be reduction in the driving pressure. Otherwise, there is no role for PEEP to be increased. If you increase the PEEP, if the driving pressure come down, then there will be significant reduction in the mortality. That was, this paper was published by Amato et al. In 2015. uh, Increase PEEP, driving pressure, if it is decreasing, then there is a recruitment, and if it is increasing, there is a over distension. We should not do this. If there is an increase in the driving pressure with the increase in PEEP, it is leading to over distension and biotrauma. Our finding might also explain why studies of higher PEEP did not show consistent survival benefits. I previous slide I have showed you, they have used increased PEEP, but driving pressure kept the same, but there was no improvement in the mortality. Same thing they are telling. PEEP increment might be protective only when the increased PEEP value results in the changing of the lung mechanics, so that the same volume can be delivered with lower driving pressure. So we have kept the volume constant, we have increased the PEEP, and the driving pressure, if it comes down, then this patient will be going to benefited. Higher PEEP should be given only in the PEEP responder. PEEP responders means if you increase the PEEP, there will be reduction in the driving pressure. This alveolar trial, improved survival with higher PEEP. Here also they have mentioned the same thing. Improved survival is associated with higher PEEP is associated only if the driving pressure is reduced, means the compliance is increased. The adjusted cumulative survival percentage, here they have increased the PEEP and compliance also increased and driving pressure reduced, so the survival improved. So the caveats of driving pressure. Uh, Driving pressure, reduction in the driving pressure was independent variable associated with the better survival. Driving pressure is currently considered as the best predictor of ventilator associated lung injury in patients with ARDS. However, evidence behind driving pressure is at best indirect and derives from the statistical models of retrospective studies. It is only a statistical number. It is indirect. The evidence, all the evidence in the driving pressure is indirect, and it is derived from the statistical models of retrospective studies. What are the caveats of driving pressure? Major drawbacks of using driving pressure is in isolation is that it doesn't take into the account of PEEP. You might have kept the PEEP of 20 or 0, but theoretical safe level of driving pressure of less than 14 could be still harmful for the patient. Driving pressure should be referred to the lung and not to the respiratory system. Here, the driving pressure we will be speaking is only restricted to the lung compliance. It is not taking the compliance of the chest wall into the consideration. Individual changes in the tidal volume RP were not independently associated with survival. It is very important. Individual changes in the tidal volume RP were not independently associated with survival. They were associated only if there were among the changes that lead to reduction in the driving pressure. Any changes in the ventilator, if it leads to reduction in the driving pressure, it will have a survival benefit. The individual changes of tidal volume and PEEP doesn't have any survival benefits. Next, coming into transpulmonary pressure. Transpulmonary pressure, the benefits of transpulmonary pressure is it will take chest wall compliance into consideration. It is a true distending pressure of the alveoli. Any injury or biotrauma to the alveoli is decided by the transpulmonary pressure rather than the driving pressure. Transpulmonary pressure offers more accurate assessment of the stress upon the lung parenchyma. It has an advantage of separating chest wall compliance from the lung compliance. Transpulmonary pressure, as I already mentioned you, it's an alveolar pressure, means plateau pressure at end of the inspiration minus the pleural pressure. As I mentioned you in the beginning of the discussion, pleural pressure will be more negative in the patient who are spontaneously breathing and has high respiratory drive. That will lead to increasing in the transpulmonary pressure more than 25 to 30. That will cause damage to the lung, as it is the true distending pressure of the alveoli. Failure to measure the transpulmonary pressure in the ventilated patient can lead to miscalculation of Willi. Because further slides I'll discuss. It can also help to customize the PEEP and tidal volume in patients in ARDS, obesity, and chest wall deformity. Detect the patient ventilator desynchrony. Here, see, the chest wall is the stiff chest wall. The pleural pressure itself is 25, and the alveolar pressure is 30. So the transpulmonary pressure is only 5. You can go up to, if the same patient with a thick chest wall and obesity or abdominal distension develops ARDS, you can increase the PEEP depending upon the transpulmonary pressure. That is what I am trying to convey in this slide. Transpulmonary pressure will be very low because of the pleural pressure being very high. So we need to measure that pleural pressure in especially in obese and abdominal distension and chest wall deformity malformations. That will guide you what is the pleural pressure, and detecting the transpulmonary pressure helps us to titrate the PEEP. Plateau pressure more than 30, measurement of transpulmonary pressure. If it is less than 25, you can still increase the PEEP. And if it is more than 25, you might have to opt for extracorporeal supports. No P-plat, but transpulmonary pressure should be limited. So what does the evidence say? Does measuring the esophageal and pleural pressure is going to have a survival benefits? That we will see in the next slide. Patient with increase, this I already discussed. Mechanical ventilation guided by esophageal pressure in acute lung injury. See, this titration of PEEP with esophageal guided strategy or empirical PEEP FiO2 strategy. They are compared both. This is published in JAMA in 2019. They are told there is no survival benefits even if you do a esophageal pressure guided PEEP titration. This is the Kaplan-Meier's survival analysis. Both has a same survival probability even if you do esophageal pressure guided PEEP titration. So it's a the invasive procedure where you need to put a catheter into the esophagus to measure the esophageal pressure, and esophageal pressure is taken as a surrogate for pleural pressure. It is not an actual pleural pressure. It's a surrogate indicator of pleural pressure. So the lung image guided PEEP titration, uh, lung ultrasonography and CT guided. You can easily see after increasing the PEEP, if there is a reduction in the consolidation and shredded appearance of the lung, then your PEEP might going to benefit. In the lower slide, there is a congruence of B lines. After increasing the PEEP, it has come down. So in this kind of scenario, it is a easy bedside assessment of the PEEP titration. We can easily do if you have ultrasonography machine. After increasing the pace, if there is a reduction in the number of B lines, then the PEEP might actually benefit. And B lines is due to interstitial edema of the lung parenchyma. One more thing, stress index, a tool to monitor tidal recruitment and over distension. For measuring the stress index, patient should be in volume control mode. All changes in the pressure time curve depends upon the changes in the compliance during the tidal volume. So pressure, any changes in the pressure time curve, it depends upon the compliance during the tidal breathing. That is the theme of the stress index. Uh, if the flow should be remains constant, and we are looking for the pressure time scalar during the ARDS ventilation, and the patient is put on volume control ventilation. This is the prerequisites. Patient should be on volume control ventilation, flow should be limited, and we are looking into the pressure time scalar. These three things. If there is a convexity towards upwards or concavity towards downwards, then the patient is potential for recruitment. Means here, if this kind of graph is seen, that indicates patient is playing in the lower part of the PV loop, like that I have already mentioned, PV loops just below the safe window. In this kind of patients, we can increase the PEEP. Here, the stress index is less than 1. Similarly, if the concavity is towards upwards, then the patient is actually over distended. Means we need to reduce the PEEP. If the stress index is 1, then that is the optimal PEEP. You can look out the scalars, pressure time scalar. If the graph is like this, you can increase the PEEP, and if graph is concavity upwards, then you can reduce the PEEP till it becomes straight. Recruitment manuals. Raghunath sir, shall we continue?
How
Hello?
many slides are there? Yeah.
Sir, probably another.
I think we can have one more talk.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Next
think-
week we can do, sir. Yeah, sir.
Yeah, because
Next week.
any
Okay,
any
sir.
questions from the audience?
I'll start from the recruitment maneuver next in the next session.
Yeah. Any questions? They can unmute themselves and talk. Jivan, how they calculated this stress index?
Sir, the patient should be put on volume control mode, sir.
Yeah.
Then we had to look for pressure time scalar.
Okay.
And the flow should be
one
calculation. That even I forgot, sir. That I don't know. Yesterday I searched it. I couldn't see that. I'll get back to you, sir, tomorrow.
Okay, no problem. Any questions from the audience? They can unmute themselves and talk. Jivan is a really excellent presentation.
Thank you, sir.
The presentation is very nice actually, so that everybody can understand how to manage
Okay,
ARDS. It is quite excellent, even including transpulmonary pressure also.
Sir.
Spoken all the aspects of ARDS.
Yes.
Any questions? Exam going students?
They can even send messages, so we will reply.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. If there is no other questions, Jivan, what we'll do, you can have this. We can mention like a recruitment manual, right? And even you want to discuss about the non-ventilation management of ARDS, like fluids. That is also there, right?
Yeah, sir. Steroids, so neuromuscular blocking agents, so ECMO, different modes of ventilation, oscillate and Ascot-Rail, APRV, everything.
Okay. We can start from transpulmonary pressure onwards.
Sir, proning is important thing, sir. We need to discuss that. Next session we can maximum take 45 minutes to 1 hour. Proning is important thing. We'll discuss in detail, sir. Next.
Okay. Thank you, Jivan. I don't think there is any further questions are there. Thank you so much. You have prepared very well. Thank you so much. So we'll have a last week. When you want to have this talk?
Next week, sir. Next week, sir.
Next week. Okay. Next week, Tuesday.
Next Thursday only.
Thursday.
Yes.
Okay, okay, fine, no problem then.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay. Thank you. Thank
okay,
you.
thank you,
Thank you.
Jeevan. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. We'll have
Thank you.
next class on Thursday. Okay, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.